Connected to Jesus. Connected to Jesus. Connected to Jesus. And what a difference that Jesus makes in our lives. When we hear the story of Jesus, when we hear the good news of what he has done for the world. He is the Savior of the world. He did the work. We just have to claim what he did for our lives. When I think of all that he's done, and I think of his resources and the lives, you understand, I have been a Christian, a follower of Jesus, since I was 5 years old. I could take you to the place in Taft, California, in Calvary Temple Assembly of God, where as a 5-year-old little boy in a vacation Bible school during the summer, that I knelt down and said, Jesus, I need you in my life. And I've listened to the stories over the 61, almost 62 years of my life of how Jesus has changed people. Those stories are remarkable. And how people have heard the message of Jesus, responded to it, what it did in their lives. Wow. We thought it'd be a great idea here as stuff's kind of, school's starting. I mean, kids maybe aren't going back into classrooms except at the one you've created at your house. This is normally the time of year when we start, we say, well, the new ministry season has begun. Thought we'd talk about the power of being connected to Jesus. Pastor Marco and I are going to share the series and share the interviews over the next 4 weeks. And, Pastor Marco, I was thinking this morning about the Apostle Paul. I was thinking about his statement in Romans chapter 1 where he said, I'm not ashamed of the message of Jesus Christ. For the message of Jesus and what he has done, the message of Jesus is the power of God for salvation to anyone who believes. Isn't that a marvelous thing? And I want to say to you today, I am not ashamed of the message of Jesus. Because the message of Jesus and what Jesus has done remains. The power of God to see people's lives not only saved, made right with God, but transformed by the power of his Holy Spirit. Little humorous thing, way back from history. Those of you, well, I wasn't alive in the 1500s, even though some of you might think that I was. But a little snippet from the life of the great reformer Martin Luther. He preached his last sermon in February of 1546, and just a few days before he died, he mentioned in that sermon that of all the beings in the universe, the one who is the most disadvantaged as a teacher is God himself. What? Well, I kept reading. Martin Luther said, why is God the most disadvantaged of all the teachers in the world? He said, because it seems as if everybody wants to be God's guidance counselor. Everybody wants God to be their student because everyone wants to improve on this gospel to fit their idea of what it ought to be. And yet the gospel, the good news, the message of salvation, the transforming power of the Holy Spirit has not only been declared by God, God owns the gospel. And it can't be improved on at all. And when I think that Jesus has paid the price, done the work, my job is to accept what he did and then live in the freedom that he purchased for me. Well, over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be unpacking the lives of 4 biblical characters whose lives were transformed by their encounter with Jesus. Stories are powerful, friend. Would you agree? Stories are powerful. And in addition to 4 folks that we are going to find in the Bible, we're also going to include 4 in-person interviews with people you know, whose lives were also transformed by their encounter with Jesus. So before I bring my guest up today, I want to turn our attention to a tragically broken man that Jesus transformed. I'm going to be reading out of the Passion Translation today. I'm going to kind of teach and go back and refer out of the NIV. But I want you to find Mark chapter 5 today. Mark chapter 5, I'm going to read 20 verses. I'm going to read 20 verses about this man whose life was transformed by Christ. They, meaning Jesus and his entourage, arrived at the other side of the lake at the region of the Gerasenes. As Jesus stepped ashore, a demon-possessed madman came out of the graveyard and confronted Jesus. Now listen, the man had been living there among the tombs of the dead, and no one was able to restrain him, not even with chains. I'm not going to mention it in the body of my teaching here, but I want you to know when it comes to transforming a life, man-made methods don't work. It takes Jesus to transform a life. For every time they attempted to chain his hands and feet with shackles, he would snap them and break the shackles in pieces. He was so strong that no one had the power to subdue him day and night. He could be found lurking in the cemetery or in the vicinity, shrieking and mangling himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran to him, threw himself down before Jesus, screaming at the top of his lungs, "Leave me alone, Jesus, Son of the Most High God. Swear in God's name that you won't torture me." For Jesus had already said to him, "Come out of that man, you evil spirit." Jesus said, "What's your name?" "Mob," he answered. "They call me Mob because there are thousands of us tormenting this body." He begged Jesus repeatedly not to expel them out of the region. Nearby there was a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside. And the evil spirits begged him, "Send us into the pigs." So Jesus gave them permission, and the mob of evil spirits immediately came out of the man and went into the pigs, and it caused the herd to rush madly down the steep slope and fall into the lake, drowning about 2,000 pigs. Today, that could be worth $250,000. Now the herdsmen fled to the villages, telling everyone what they saw as they ran through the countryside. Everyone came out to see what had happened. When they found Jesus, they saw that tormented man sitting there now, properly clothed and in his right mind. Seeing what had happened to the man who had thousands of evil spirits, the people were terrified. Those who had witnessed this miracle reported the news to the people and included what had happened to the pigs. Well, that represented the local economy. And then they asked Jesus, having seen the miracle, "You need to leave, Jesus. You've tore this place up, Jesus. Please leave." And as Jesus began to get in the boat to depart, the man who had been set free from the evil spirits asked him, "Can I please go with you?" And Jesus answered, "No," but said to him, "Go back to your home and to your family and tell them what the Lord has done for you. Tell them how the Lord had mercy on you." So the man left and went into the region of Jordan and parts of Syria to tell everyone he met about what Jesus had done for him. And all the people marveled. Wow. Talk about a dramatic situation. I want to rephrase the first two verses to give you a clearer understanding. One day, Jesus and his associates flew from the East Coast to the West Coast, to the city of Bakersfield. And when Jesus stepped off the airplane, a man out of the city of Bakersfield immediately ran to him whose life was totally out of control because of the power of the influence of the evil one. Could that sound familiar to anyone, particularly the rephrased version? A man ran to him whose life was totally out of control because of the power and the work of the evil one. You know, I think it should sound familiar because we've probably all been there at least a time or two in our lives, maybe a season of our life, out of control and seemingly helpless at the influence of the enemy and his destructive ways. You know, friend, every human being at some time in their life is just like this guy who was roaming the tombs. Now, we don't recognize it about ourselves a lot of the time because what we believe we are doing is what we want to do. We're just following our own path and doing what brings us pleasure and what makes for the most amount of fun for us. But you know, God's Word says that we're just as out of control in our lives as this man who spent his time wandering in the place of the dead. We thought we were fulfilling our own plans. We thought we were building our best life now. We thought we were just following our own desires when really what we were doing was following the enemy's script laid out for the destruction of our lives. Do you know what I find interesting, family, friends? The enemy of our lives knows that God hasn't given him the power to destroy us directly. If God had, he would. Do you hear me? But he knows God hasn't given him the power to destroy us directly. So what does the enemy do? He works to get us to destroy ourselves. While we think we're out living our best life. Life on our terms. Life the way we want. Let me just point out to all of us today that self-destructive patterns of living, no matter how insidious they are one of the major signs of a life under the domination of the influence of the enemy. It's exactly what we see at work in this man. I want to go back to verse 5. Now, I'm switched over to the NIV. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out, and he would mutilate, cut himself with stones. Could I submit to you today, to all of us today, to the extent that the enemy is at work in a person's life, that's the extent the person's life will be out of control and headed down a pathway, maybe I should say a speedway, to destruction. Might be a family member, could be a friend. It might even be you. And no matter the person, how well dressed, how well educated, how well connected, they need to be delivered by the power of Jesus as much as this man living his life in the tombs. Let's go back to verses 6 through 8. When he saw Jesus from a distance, so maybe in our updated story, maybe he was one of the guys working at the airport. Maybe it was a family member waiting for their family member to get off the plane. But he saw Jesus from a distance. And he ran and he fell at his knees in front of him. And he shouted at the top of his voice. Look, if you're there, over there, shouting at the top of your lungs, that's one thing. You're down here at my knees and you're screaming at the top of your lungs. What do you want with me? Swear to me that you will not torture me. For prior to, again, the knowledge of Jesus, the fullness of the Spirit working in Jesus' life. When Jesus coming down out of that plane, not even totally stepped off the gangway to get down to the ground. Jesus had already seen, perceived, understood, and had already, maybe not out loud, just in his spirit, get out of that man and leave right now. Whew. I got to tell you something, friend. And it's something that gives me strength. It gives me hope. The grip of the enemy on anyone's life is no problem at all for Jesus Christ. When Jesus calls the work of the enemy out in any person's life, it must release its grip. I'm sure the people who knew and loved this man, could you imagine his mommy and daddy? Could you imagine his brother and sisters? We don't know when something turned and changed in his life. Did he go out of his mind all at once? Was it a gradual process? Can you imagine the torment? Can you imagine everything that they brought to bear in that time to bring comfort, to bring direction, to bring some type of healing, to somehow calm him down? What about his wife? Did he have children? I don't know. But can you imagine the shame? Can you imagine the embarrassment? Can you imagine the heartbreak? I'm sure by the time he was ripping his clothes off and living in graveyards and cutting himself and screaming, tortured in his own spirit in the nighttime, I mean, he must be hopeless. The pain, the horror heaped on his family, the Oh, well, look at their children. Yeah, but they got one. You hear the screams in the night? Yeah, that's theirs. And in that culture, I wonder what they did wrong to have a son turn out like him. And you know what, friends? It may seem just as hopeless when our loved one is so broken through rebellion, through addictions, and there are thousands that we can think of. We say they're hopeless. We've done everything. We've tried everything. We've got the best doctors. We've done everything. The best mental health professionals. They're hopeless. Not for Jesus. You see, it didn't matter how broken. The passage says that the enemy had multiple hooks deep inside this man, all pulling in opposite directions, tearing him apart and torturing him. And they all relinquished their devastation at the command of Jesus as this man fell at his feet. Can I tell you the part of the story that I like best? I'm going to go back to the Passion Translation. I just love the way that it says this. And it's starting at verse 18 again. And as Jesus began to get in the boat to depart, do you know that it's not recorded that Jesus ever went back to this area ever again? The man who had been set free said to Jesus, "Can I come with you, Jesus?" And Jesus answered, "No. Here you are clothed. Here you are with a settled mind. Go back to your family, to your brothers, your sisters, maybe your wife, maybe your children. Go back to your neighbors. Go back into the area where all your childhood friends that you grew up with were. And tell them the story of what the Lord has done for you. Tell them how the Lord had mercy on you." And so he left and went into the region of Jordan and parts of Syria to tell every single person he met about what Jesus had done for him. And all the people who heard the story and saw the man marveled at what Jesus had done. He sent him back home to those who had loved him the most, to be a witness of the power of God. And that's why I want to remind us all today. Our testimony of how God delivered and transformed us is one of the greatest tools that the Holy Spirit can use in seeing the walls come down in other people's lives so they too can embrace the story of Jesus. So could I tell you today, we all need to find somebody to tell what Jesus has done for us. And if he can do it for us, he can do it for them. And no matter how long you've been roaming around spiritually vulnerable through the dead places of life, Jesus can set you free. I've often thought about this story. A common question that people ask others today: how did you find Jesus? Can you imagine, Pastor Marco, if somebody heard this guy's story and said, "How did you find Jesus?" I really believe The man in the tombs replied, "Me? Find Jesus? Nah, I was too messed up. Jesus found me." And if you're lost and you're wandering, I want you to know Jesus is looking to find you. Maybe even today. Pastor Marco, why don't you come get this chair real quick? I'm going to call our first interviewee up today. Ashley Hofstrand, come on up here and join me. Come on, you ready? You got your mic on? You ready to go? You can lay anything down right there. Well, Ashley has been a part of our church. We were talking this morning for just about 3 years now.
It's been about 3 years, yeah.
That's pretty cool. And actually kind of came here initially through a friendship. Oh, there you go, folks. Isn't it good to talk to your friends and invite them to church? Well, Ashley is an accomplished stylist. She is a corporate trainer. And Ashley is the only friend that I have that has ever completed the New York City Marathon. And she did that last year. But she's got a husband named Mike. She's got 2 great kids named Hudson and Harrison that I absolutely adore. And today, you're the first person that gets to be interviewed.
Yay!
Yay! And, sitting here in an empty room, well, we've got a couple of friends on our team that are here today to give a little courage and whatever. We're going to have a little bit of discussion. You heard about the story of somebody's life that was changed. I just want to get right into it today, Ashley. Could you just tell us how you got connected to Jesus and a little bit of your journey?
I would love to. And thank you for telling that story, because I think I might have got my tears out. I'm hoping there's no more. We'll see.
Okay.
Marty knows I can be a crier sometimes. One of the things that I wanted to share and that I was sharing with you this morning is I actually was raised in church. So I had a connection as a young girl all the way up through probably junior high, early high school.
Okay.
Loved doing my missions and involved in my youth group. I joke because I'm like, I knew where the books of the Bible were when I was younger than I do now. I'm still fumbling around. I'm like, I think I got it. And I shouldn't say unfortunately, and I'll explain why I'm not going to say unfortunately. My life took a different path, probably that vulnerable teen age when everything started. And I just lost my way. I didn't, it happened so fast, like it does I'm sure I'm not the only person sharing that part of my story.
Isn't it something how we wake up one day and it's like, oh my gosh, how'd I get here?
Yeah, like I look and sometimes I blink and just wonder, gosh, like why'd you put yourself in those situations? And, you knew better and, you knew that was wrong. You knew what you were doing the whole time you were doing it. And flash forward into my 20s, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm in my young adult life, and to me, I'm living my best life. I am an independent woman, like doing my thing, and I didn't need anybody, and all the things that happened, and I had put myself into a lot of different situations that obviously I'm not proud of, and just the weight of all of that burden just kept getting stacked and stacked and stacked, just like little bricks of, your self-worth being chipped away. I mean,
do you remember feeling that
Absolutely.
way?
I absolutely do. And it, I'll even as it gets older and more into my, marriage and then into my, being a mother, like all of this that just kept damaging and rearing its ugly head. Yeah. And so, all these choices that I made and not relying on anybody. Like I was the one to blame. And, it just was this swirl of destruction. And, gosh, I'm trying to think. So I had my son, Hudson. Hi, Hudson.
Hey, Hudson. How are you, bud?
Hi, Hudson. Love you, baby. I had my son, Hudson, with my husband, Mike. And I was very young. I was 22 when we found out I was pregnant, and I delivered him 2 days after my 23rd birthday. So if any of you remember what you were doing when you were 23, I had no idea what I was doing. It was all new. And I was doing the best that I knew how to do. And me and Mike were just the best. We still are the best of friends. It's what I love about us is our relationship is we were having fun and doing what you do when you raise kids. Again, with zero influence from, church whatsoever. And, just doing our own thing.
Right.
Flash forward, had our other son, Harrison. Hi, Harrison. And I really would say for me, this is where the grips of the enemy just started, like you're saying, like ripping you apart into both different sides. I dealt with postpartum with both of my kids. I've dealt with depression and mental illness, and I'm so grateful to not be ashamed of it at this point in my life anymore. So that obviously will come out a little bit more as well as I speak. But just this swirl of destruction around self-destruction. And, when I would look in the mirror and everything from that time I was walking alone without, Jesus with me anymore. I mean, even though I know he was there.
Right.
But, I look a lot of it when I would look in the mirror as a young girl who looked like she had her stuff together, because from the outside, I would like to think that I looked like I had my stuff together. Maybe I did look like the crazy person roaming around the tombs. I don't know. But, I would look in the mirror, and to me, I could barely even look at myself in the eyes. Like, it was just all of this, shame and guilt and just like, what are you doing? Like, who in the world are you? And how do you even deserve to even have these children? Like, what do you're not even a good mother. Like, I mean, just every ounce of the enemy, his hooks was all about that self-destruction and telling me that I was 100% not good enough, and every ounce of me was ugly and was a bad person, and that's what I would wake up and have my coffee and stare at, and then go raise kids and try to be a wife and work. And I think one of the hardest things for me is that those around me that know me, I am a very bubbly, happy person. And I felt like I was acting every day for them, because I didn't want people to know how unhappy.
That's a hard role to play,
it's exhausting. Like, it is very, very exhausting to live what you think people want you to be.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah. So that's
Do you know
where
how
I
many
was.
people even right now that you're talking to, not just young women, but young men as well, that on the outside, and they know, just like I did at points in my life, boy, am I putting on a good show. But inside, I'm dying. So where was that moment where, because you talk about an earlier experience with Jesus, so tell me a little bit, when did the spiritual tide and the reconnection happen in your life?
It would have been a few years ago, and it always was there. And one of the things that through my healing, I definitely have dealt with just that denial. Like, I definitely am very, very fortunate. I have that strong relationship with God, and I'm so grateful that he was always there with me. And so just that shame of even denying, knowing when I should have been coming back, and this hurt. And we spoke of our friend that was here, and I knew her even before the few years ago, and she always was inviting me to come to women's Bible study, and hey, come to women's Bible study, I think you'll really like it. And it just never, was like never. And then we were
in our own lives and busy and
you're
schedules.
just running around.
Right.
I had so it was a few summers ago, and we were vacationing together as families with our children and our husbands. And little did our dear sweet friend Amanda Jones, hi Amanda, I hope you're watching, I don't think she knew the depth of my despair, like at that moment. And she just asked one more time, and said, hey, when we get back from vacation, we're starting a new study, and I really think that you should come. And I said yes. And like that, was
an invitation from a friend to join a ladies' Bible study on Wednesday.
Yeah. And I walked through the doors, and I was so nervous, but I feel very, very fortunate. I've heard stories where people search for churches for years, and I instantly, the second I walked through those doors here at Family Community Fellowship, it was like a hug. Like I literally knew I was home.
I like that,
and the women were so inviting, and it's a small group of us here, and I just it was crazy. And the study that we did was by Louis Giglio, and it was Goliath Must Fall. That's what it was called. So it was Goliath Must Fall. And we went through just the steps of what we need in order to get our Goliath in our life. I still have the rock that we did, and so
you still have the rock.
Yeah, so there was a rock at the end that we did, and it said to write down your one Goliath, and I wrote down all 5 weeks because I was like, just one? I'm like, are you kidding me? All 5?
It's kind of like the guy here. It's a mob. No, it's not just one.
I was like, no, I'm sorry. It was all 5 that I needed help with. Please don't judge me. And I have those written down, and it's fear and addiction and this shame and just all of these things that we went through. And I will never go through another study, I don't think, that would be as soul stopping. I felt like every worship song that our sweet sister Dawn picked out, I felt like she picked that out for me that week. Everything that he said, I felt like he was looking at me. I've never done homework so intently in my whole life. Like, it just was one of those ones where I'm like, it literally.
You mean it was almost like a divine appointment?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
And
he found you.
He found me, and from that moment forward, I really say I just have gone running from this point forward. I just wanted more and more. And it was after a few Wednesdays that I decided to come on a Sunday. And so then that would have been one of the first times that I sat through church.
Oh my gosh, you mean you didn't spend hours listening to Steve, did you?
Yeah, I know, right?
I know, okay.
And again, just feeling like home and all of those things. And I know we'll talk obviously a little bit more details and stuff, but one small, simple step and an act of someone's story. And when you think, if you know Amanda and you're fortunate to have her in your life, she's somebody that I look up to, as being a Christian woman. And I look up to how she leads her life. And one of the things I love is that, when you look at her, you think of Christ. And when I'm hoping, I shouldn't say I hope. I know that I'm starting to be that person as well, and that's
Wonderful.
the thing that I'm so grateful for is just to know that transformation is real. And I remember being younger, and you hear women and you see these, and men, when they tell their stories, and it's like, I'll get down to the nitty gritty. I know we don't have enough time here, but if there's anybody that ever wants to talk about transformation, I can talk about the deep, dark, ugly that I went through in my life. And for me, the biggest thing when I think of transformation and testimony, if there was one thing that I had to say as far as where I'm at right now, and it's just from living in this turmoil into living in such peace.
Wow.
I never in a million years thought that I would go from crazy turmoil to being able to wake up and actually be at peace again.
Wow.
And I chose this shirt today for a reason. It says chosen. I look in the mirror, and there are so many blessings that God has given me and my family and in my life, tangible blessings.
Yes.
But I look in the mirror, and now I see loved, and I see worthy. And I remember writing down unworthy in my journal so many times, and it's just to search for love and an unconditional love for my whole life, and then now to have it and to know that I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Wow.
and that I am chosen to be his daughter is just, it's changed everything around me, and I just am so
Well, it sounds like you almost answered my second question already, and that what area of your life has Jesus transformed the most?
I would have to say under my roof, like
under your roof.
I would have to say under my roof, and my three amazing, my two young men and my big guy, I have put them through a lot. You always say someone can look happier. You never know what's going on behind someone's closed doors. And, the biggest bit of forgiveness that I could finally get was to forgive myself for the things that I have done. And the one thing that this has given was I was so strong in my transformation before this quarantine hit, and I will scream it from the rooftops. It has changed me as a mother. I love my boys so much, and to be able to handle the stress of being home every day. You were, I traveled more than I was home, and I'm not proud of it. I look back to it now and I'm like, I traveled for all the wrong reasons. I traveled for, I tried to be like, and again, I'm very proud of the things I've done in my job, and, not to take that away.
No.
But, to run from your problems.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm on this plane ride for 2 hours, I don't have to think about this stress. If I'm, further in a different city, then I don't have to deal with what's going on. And I'm fortunate at the age, my boys are 10 and 13, and I think even too at probably some of my worst. They're not going to remember me at my worst. But I just think what a blessing that they get to remember me at my best. And, they weren't raised in the church until now. And I just think it's such a unique blessing to be going on this with them. And when I shared even like with Pastor Marco, he's doing incredible things with the youth, and then we've got Pastor Randy and with Harrison, and my boys they struggle during the technology side of things, but definitely those hooks are in there, and I shouldn't say the hooks are out of them, but they want to know more about Jesus,
absolutely.
and my oldest son he's just incredible. And I shared with church a while ago, one of my prayer requests was to have a man of God in my house. And, I was praying and praying and praying and feeling like the Lord was letting me down. And it just took me to realize that, I do have one in him. And he's such a good guy. He's such a good guy. And he teaches me things, and, I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. And
no. Even Steve, that you can listen to hours of on YouTube,
is not
perfect.
And there's something about this like how you were saying, July is always the hardest month. Like there's something about this Bakersfield heat that I feel like summer always throws us off our game a little bit.
It does.
Like, and you just become consumed, and it's like, school this and blah, blah, blah. So I will say right now, it's been a good season of our life, but it's been a season that I've felt the enemy coming back in and like, trying to take those little steps back, and me realizing I don't have to do it on my own. And I think that that's what I have to keep reminding myself is I'm not doing this on my own, and I have, the best person in charge helping me put one foot in front of the other.
So it sounds like that life is very different for Ashley Hofstrand right now.
It is.
In her life. And you credit that to Jesus.
To Jesus, absolutely.
I mean, and then I want to add this here is that it's interesting to me that in a culture that really doesn't prize, let's say, coming to church that much, it seems to me that laced in your story or woven through there is how a Bible study, how a worship service, how your sons being able to go to youth or to Kid Nation or whatever, that actually coming together with the people of God has really been something significant for you.
It really has been my anchor. I mean, through all of it. And one of the things that when when I do share or have shared, like the three consistent things for me is those Bible studies. They're so huge. It gives me a purpose every morning. It helps me wake up and just get your mind straight. And worship is so important to me, especially to, I would just challenge anybody who's feeling broken or lost or just having a bad day.
Yes.
Like, turn your phone off and just put on worship music, because it has got, like, I feel like I love not knowing what the worship team's going to play, because I feel like God hand chooses at least one song for me.
There you
like
go.
Every single Sunday, and the tears flow, and worship is so healing. And I think especially, me coming back into everything, and I, still consider myself a little baby Christian coming back in, and, leaning into the word more, and, learning how to use scripture. But at the same point in time, there's so much word of God in his, just in worship. And
absolutely,
being like having the right heart and listening to it. I love it. I don't think I've actually listened to mainstream music probably in the last couple years. It's what's always in my car, and
it's great.
It is. I'll catch, Mike. I've caught you humming, so don't think that you're off the hook. I've caught you humming to a couple songs there.
Well, some are pretty good. If I could hum to the Rattle song by Elevation Worship, I'd do it a little bit better.
That.
We only have just a couple of more minutes. Oh, no, not sorry. Because remember, no, we could. But I want you to, what did we say today? Stories.
Yes.
Are powerful.
Yes, they are.
So you've let us know in a nutshell. Any of us could sit and, we can't paint every color, every scene that needs to be on the canvas of our lives. But, as we close this, and just as quickly as you can, are there still any areas of your life that you would like Jesus to transform?
I definitely, there's two things that come to my mind when I think about that. And one of them that I've been really praying on and acting on is I've been reading Proverbs 31 and, being a noble woman and a worthy woman. And I've torn that back and forth and up apart. And I'm really trying. I'm not saying I'm trying. I'm really being open.
Yeah.
I'm being open, and I'm trying to live my life in that manner. And it's that epilogue, for a man to his wife, and she's more precious than rubies. And it's just, I love going that further. And then down into the end of it, when it says, her children stand and call her blessed. I just love all of that. And taking it even further into that relationship is I want to make God proud. I want him to look down at me and say, she's a noble woman. She's a worthy woman. And it's scary. When you push yourself to that transformation and you pray the big, scary, big things for transformation, you have to be willing to know that areas of your life are going to be taken away. And I think the old me would have been scared to have seen some relationships maybe end, or different areas of your life that you're being pushed to. And in our study right now that we're doing with Beth Moore, Chasing Vines, I'm such a visual person, and we spoke on this paragraph where she was saying, God is he's our gardener, and when he prunes the vine, he's methodically taking out things that are not of service to us anymore. Right. And I think the old me would have been scared of that thought. Yes. And, the Ashley that sits here today, I'm like, prune away. And I'm just thrilled to see where that's going to take me, and then where that's going to take my family. And just knowing that, trusting in the fact that everybody's in your life for a reason, and then maybe they're in your life for a season, and just knowing that you learned something from them and you can move on knowing. And, through all of my healing, I think the biggest thing with my transformation was going back and, apologizing to myself, apologizing to God, apologizing to my family for the situations I went through. But then also, I was sharing with you this morning, is can see Jesus in every moment of that life.
Yeah.
And every moment that I was alone and felt alone, now looking back, like I know the purpose of everything that was bad that happened to me, or everything that was self-destructive that I did to myself, and the purpose of it to get me to where I am now. And, you know, I'm praying the big, scary prayers of like, Lord, use me how you want to use me. And I definitely don't know where that's going to take me.
No.
Ever.
No.
And I'm 120% open to it. And I'm thrilled to see where the church can use me. I'm thrilled to see where the community can use me. I'm such at peace. Like I really honestly am such at peace of just knowing that no matter what tomorrow brings, I have him on my side, and I have him with me and to talk to. And I'm not a traditional prayer. I think that I talk to the Lord
A little rough every now and then?
in my bathroom more.
Well,
I'm like a shower prayer.
Yeah,
I'm a bathroom prayer. I'm a car prayer. Like
That's fine.
and I just have those conversations, and I just, say, Lord, use me and let me be a light for you. And I think the cool thing is I've been on stages, doing things and some really cool stuff in my life, and just the amazing feeling you get when you connect with somebody else, or you share your story and you see that it's changing them, and seeing what is happening in the seeds that you can plant.
Right.
And, it's not about me. That's what I kept praying this morning. Like, Lord, it's not about me. Like, use me, use your voice through me,
Sure.
And so to be able to have, like, when you live a life where for so long it was about who you were, and then now to have this identity through Christ, it's just such a peaceful, awesome feeling.
And isn't it amazing? And we'll wrap it up with this. That you can look back in your life and you see, it's funny that a piano has not only white but black keys. Interestingly enough, the black keys are the minor keys. And it's an amazing thing to see that when what we would say are the good, but then the ones that are negative, how together they can come together and make beautiful music, and how if we look at all of the things in our lives as God doing a massive weaving project, that somehow or other, and I was fortunate to watch people weave beautiful Turkish rugs just last year. And to bring all of those threads together, and it's like, how does this, and yet when the weaver is done, it's something that's beautiful. Why did this one happen here? Why is this one darker? Why is this one? But at the end result, we see that the master weaver, who is God, takes everything in our lives and is able to reflect his glory through that and to let others know how powerful he is.